Hello everyone and welcome back to Axon Gamers. Today I want to talk about The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild for Nintendo Switch and Nintendo Wii U. And I'm happy to say, first and foremost, that this game is freaking amazing. I love the game so very much and it does so many things right. Um, but other than that, what I want to point out is that this game is just as good on the Nintendo Wii U. So if you cannot buy the Nintendo Switch for whatever reason, or you just want to wait on buying the system and have a Wii U, this game is just as good on there. My friend Mario is playing the game on Wii U right now. He's playing the Japanese version, and I played the one in English. And once he's done with the game, and before you might watch this actually, and um, please join me here for a spoiler discussion because today I want this video to be spoiler free. I want to talk about like my experience and my thoughts of the game without going into spoilers too heavy. Uh, but some of the best things about this game is your like everything you find because it's all about exploration and your experience as a whole, or and like all the small experiences uh, in both combat and exploring and the story, and just like there's quite a lot of mind blows here as well. All of those are really good, but I want to talk about these the spoilers more in another video. So let's let's start talking about my experience with the game. So I played it on the Nintendo Switch. So I have the console right here, and I really love this console. I'm gonna make a console review on the Switch soon, but for today that'll be it for the Switch. So Zelda I got on the midnight launch. So I was actually working on the midnight launch, and thank you all if anybody of you who were there is watching this. It was a very good time, and I just had such a great time on the midnight launch for the Nintendo Switch. And right after the event was over, I got my own console with the game, and I went like straight home. And the thing was, I was going to work the entire day after that, so the best thing I could have done was just like go to bed. But I really wanted to try out Zelda, so I unboxed the system. And the thing is, like, you do not need to hook it up to the docking station to play. The Nintendo Switch works like a handheld, so I can play it like this. And it's awesome because it was charged out of the box as well. So I put in Zelda, and the games come in these like small cartridges you might see there. Um, so I put the cartridge in the system, and I start playing right away with headphones, by the way. And you play the game whichever way you want, but with headphones or like a really good sound system, the game sounds so much better. And the sound in this game is pretty important. Like, it's an open world game with a very good environment and like attention to detail, not just in graphics, but in sound as well. So that was an amazing start for me, playing an hour or two maybe before I went to bed. So the game, I'm not going to spoil the story, as I said, not too much anyway, but the game starts off in a closed environment. And when you get out of there, you are on the top of a mountain, and once you reach the peak, the game zooms out. And the game zooms out so you can see the whole world, or like a huge part of it in a way. This game is huge. This game is really big, like incredible. So what you see here, at least, it's very incredible, and it kind of blew my mind actually, because the music starts playing. Like I said, the game zoomed out, so and the logo for the game comes up as well. I got really emotional actually. I wanted to get down there and explore this world. I've been wanting to for quite some time, and I've had the opportunity to, or I would have had the chance to play the game twice. at a convention, and back when I tried the Switch, I made a video about that. But I didn't get to play the game on either of those occasions. So this was the first time with the game for me. So I was very emotional starting playing it, and so where do I start when I want to like talk about the game? This is not a review, but I want to cover like some basics anyway. So what's very fascinating about the game is because the first thing I picked up was a tree branch, uh, or an apple. The apples are great. You eat those for recovering health. It's amazing, and I'm gonna get back into that later because it's quite funny. But the tree branch was my weapon, my first weapon, and it's just as weak as it sounds. It's just a tree branch, and it breaks like any tree branch would. So I go on my adventure and I start beating enemies, and I barely beat the first enemy with this tree branch before it breaks. Uh, but what's so incredible about the game is that every time you beat an enemy, you get the weapons that enemy have. So if you fight the enemy with like a sword and a shield, you will get that sword and the shield every single time. So the goal here, I understood directly that all I need is a weapon strong enough to beat my next enemy, and I'm good to go. Um, you still do not get experience in this game like in any other Zelda. It's not an RPG in that sense. So beating enemies are not very crucial, and so saving my weapons for a enemy that I like think is worth beating before like wasting the weapon was a good idea, because beating everything is not very important because you do not have experience points. So um, at least that's very logical to me. So I uh, I run out of my adventure, and the game starts up on this mountain, like I said, and you're stuck here, even though it's a huge mountain, and even on top of here there's like a snow environment, a like woods, even like a desert kind of place. It has all kinds of different environments, even though it's just the top of one single mountain in the game. Um, Pretty incredible. Like, I don't know where to begin. But once you finished like every area in this area, you realize that this is the prologue for the game, and that's like 1%, if even 1% of the game. This starting area, and that took me like 5 hours to beat. Very incredible, I have to say. So during this period, you beat a bunch of shrines, and shrines is the next thing I want to talk about in the game here. Um, there's a bunch of like small dungeons in the game. When you interact with them, you gain access to warp to that specific point. So you wanna like find all these, so you access the fast travel mechanic, and that makes you able to warp to all kinds of different places. So so right from the start here, you're able to warp between at least these like 4 places, because the game starts with 4 shrines. Um, and inside of those, it's about puzzles. Puzzles is one of like the Zelda franchise's great strength. So here I was hoping that the game would have good puzzles, because that's like one of the main reasons I play Zelda, um, because it's great puzzle games, and I'm happy to say that the puzzles are really, really good. There are a total of 120 shrines, believe it or not, and all of those are like really good. There's like really good puzzles in them. Some you beat very fast, some takes a bit longer, but all in all, I think they are all really great. But since there are so many of them, uh, they're not like the dungeons in the main Zelda games, uh, or like the previous Zelda games. I don't, you know what I mean. Um, so you go in there, and it's kind of like one of the puzzle rooms in a dungeon from the previous games. So when you beat this room, you get your reward, which is usually a weapon or shield, or like some kind of equipment or money, and you go up again from the shrine. Um, but you also get a spirit shard. I believe they're called spirit shards. And once you have four of those, you will be able to either increase your stamina or increase your health. And this is also so very incredible about the game because I recently talked about my challenge in Twilight Princess where I play with 3 hearts, and that's something I know a lot of people do to make Zelda games harder. But for the first time in Zelda, you're able to do this 3 heart challenge without losing anything. Because instead of saying, I do not want to pick up this heart, you can say, I want something else instead. And so you will get more stamina. And stamina in this game is, like, even if I didn't do the challenge, I would still pick stamina, because stamina is amazing. So where do I start with stamina? I need to cover the prologue first. So once you beat these 4 shrines, there's a bunch of story and yada yada, but then you get the glider, and the glider is the last important like core mechanic I wanna talk about in the game, because in the game you can climb pretty much any surface. You can't climb inside the shrines and the main dungeons, because there are main dungeons in the Zelda as well. Fantastic stuff. But except for those places, you can climb any surface. So you will need stamina to climb up, and once you've got this glider, you can glide down. And the more stamina you have, the further you can glide without Link like losing the grip of the glider. So by picking stamina instead of health, I can climb up more mountains. And from there, if I don't find a shrine up there, I can glide to the next mountain, and from there, like, continue my search, continue my journey, continue my exploration on this epic adventure, because it really feels like playing the first Zelda game. If you've done that, or many other open world games, you just want to see what's next, or what's behind the next mountain, or what's like on the other side of this pond or river. It's such an amazing game when it comes to exploration, because of the climbing and the gliding, and stamina helps. That's just all I want to say. That if you pick stamina, you're gonna be able to explore, and by exploring, you get more shrines, and by getting more shrines, you will get even more stamina, or eventually health. So I recommend you go for stamina first, so you can get even more stamina or health eventually. But not just because the health and stamina, but also because every single shrine you reach, you will get the warp point as well. So explore the world, get the warp points, and build your character. It's such a good like structure of the game, and this isn't even like mentioning the main story or the main quest or what the game is about. It's just like fun gameplay, like the sheer fun of the gameplay, to a certain extent. What made me beat the game and stick to the game was, of course, the main quest and the main story and all the like different story arcs, and like I said, the main dungeons, because those were really incredible. But in between those, actually having such a solid open world game was quite amazing, I have to say. And it's just so cool that you can have such great graphics in the open world game as well, because this doesn't look anything like Far Cry, Skyrim, or Fallout. Something like many open world games have in common is the ragdoll physics and like very lazy animations and graphics in general, because it's open world. I understand that if you make a game this big, you can't have very good like animation or physics or things like that, because it's just too big. But I don't know how, but this game has both. I'm I'm so surprised, but very happy to say that this game has the graphics and animation and like quality of a linear single player game like Ocarina of Time or Twilight Princess, for example. But it's open world. It's incredible. It's so amazing. But like if you don't wanna play it as an open world game, you can just go for the main quest, and the main quest is around 30 hours. I beat the game in about 50, I believe. There's no way to see how many hours you played, but I believe I played 40 or 50 hours, just out of memory. I've been thinking back, and I believe I played 50 hours. I'm not sure. Um, but as I said, I got the game on the Nintendo Switch launch last Friday, and I finished the game this Friday, or actually like the night from Thursday to Friday, um, because Thursday night I was getting closer to wrapping up the story and beating the game, and I just had to stay up and finish it. The whole game is like the whole story. Like, I'm not gonna spoil anything, of course, but it's about one thing. It's like one thing you want to do and one thing you have to do, and throughout the whole game, everything you do is becoming stronger, or like finding things that will eventually make you stronger, or increase the odds of doing this thing you are about to do. So every time you get further into the story, or every time you just explore on my little own adventures, um, I'm making the ending greater, and it's so cool. So when I finally beat the game, um, it's so amazing because I've been waiting for this moment the whole game. I've been waiting for this for 50 hours, and somehow it makes it a bit disappointing as well, because you've been waiting for this for such a long time and then it's just over. And I mean, that's fine. It's fine because the adventure was so good and the journey was so good. And just like one of my favorite games, like one of my favorites ever, that's Mass Effect 3. And a lot of people shit on Mass Effect 3 because the ending is so controversial. But to me, the journey is just as important, if not even more important, because I mean, the vast majority of the game is reaching the ending. The ending is just the end. And I mean, a good end and a satisfying end is important. And the ending in Breath of the Wild was very satisfying. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying that um, um, maybe I wish there was more. I don't know. I don't know. I don't know where I'm going with this because the game was so good. Uh, and I just want to be realistic and complain for a bit because the game is not a 10 out of 10. The game is not perfect. There's not a lot of perfect games. To me, like, I have two perfect games, personally. Um, but this is not one of them, even though I felt like it was perfect for the longest time. Um, and I want to get back to that before I wrap up the video, but I'm going to save that to last because that's, yeah, probably the last thing I want to say about the game. It's a certain feeling I had playing the game that makes it very special, and why I want all of you to play this game. But yeah, first, another thing about the exploration, because exploring the map, you will reach like different environments. You're gonna reach like snow area, or many snow areas, and hot areas like you have the Death Mountain, which is like this warm mountains, and the desert, which is obviously very warm as well. So they've added RPG elements to the game, where you have resistance to different elements. So you can find specific gear to gear up to increase your cold resistance or your heat resistance, so you can explore more. And it's awesome that it encourages the gamer to find these items, or maybe defeat enemies to gather materials so you can build these items, or collecting fruits and other foods to because you can cook in the game as well. And exploring gives you everything you need to play around with the game's mechanics to eventually explore more. And it's just such a good circle. Personally, I don't want to say I broke the game or anything, but I like I mentioned earlier, apples are good, and like I would gather all the apples I could find, but they replenish half a heart, and you can find like three apples in every tree you find, like apple trees. Um, so getting 20 or 50 or 99 apples, it wouldn't be a problem. Just go around and pick as many as you want. But since I only had 3 hearts for the longest time, um, 6 or like 5 apples would be full health for me. So I would collect a bunch of apples, um, and just totally ignore this mechanic of the game where I talked about the cold and the heat resistance. Personally, I just ran through the environments until I could reach the next shrine, the war points, as I mentioned before. Um, just eating apples. It was just very funny. I would like to see like a animation or like a sketch of that, because in my head it looked so funny. Or like the thought of Link just breezing through the game eating apples. Um, and that's something about the combat as well, because I would beat bosses with the few items I got from the shrines, um, and apples for the longest time. Eventually, I like when I got further into the game, I would start doing other things, of course, but for a very long time, the apples were good. So keep that in mind. Um, what can I say more? So yeah, I was complaining a bit, not complaining, but like I just want to get it out of the way that the game is not perfect, and one of the flaws in the game uh, also is that to me it felt a bit rushed. I know I've been saying the game is amazing and it's really really good, but even though it's like perfect in so many ways, you can see that the story, or like the presentation, I guess, in the story, um, was a bit rushed, because the first area I got to, and which is the first area I know a lot of people got to, this area has a bunch of cutscenes, a lot of voice acting, and a bunch of different characters featured in the cutscenes. So you would get the sense of like this is the perfect game because we have a open world game with cutscenes and voice acting and everything. Um, I really had the feeling of like this game is perfect, and um, but it's just like when you got to the next part of the game, like it wasn't as well done. So many other like cities in the game, or story arcs didn't have as much cutscenes and as much voice acting. And whenever you had a cutscene, it would just be between like 2 characters and not like all of these bunch of voice acted characters. So that's a tiny complaint in this great open world game, which is mostly about the gameplay. It's a very small complaint because it's not really about the story that much anyway. I mean, the story was really good. I loved it, and it's very similar to Majora's Mask in a lot of ways. That's also something I want to mention, that the game is very similar to Majora's Mask, because you have like the main dungeons in the game are in like set uh, environments, just like in Majora's Mask, if you play that game even. But like you have the desert dungeon, and you have the like water dungeon and things like that. But what's so cool about Majora's Mask is that in between these dungeons there are a lot of like mini adventures, or like characters you meet on your way, and this game had just that, but being open world. So on your way to the next story segment, you would meet like a bunch of like people with like smaller stories combined with your own stories of like exploring. So all in all, it was a very very incredible experience, and for the vast majority of the game, I had the feeling that this game is perfect and that this game is a 10 out of 10. At the end of the day, I cannot say that. Like now, I don't feel the game is a 10. It's probably a 9, a 9.5, or 8.5. I haven't decided yet, but it's not a 10 out of 10. that I actually felt that for such a long time, and that I would play a game that felt perfect means a lot. And that's why I want all of you to play this game, because what can I recommend more than a game that feels perfect, even though it's not? Uh, I hope that makes sense. I really do. And if not, then play the game and find out for yourself. Um, it's really really good. The Legend of Zelda: Breath of the Wild. It's really really good, and I hope you all play it now, later, or whenever you feel like, on the Nintendo Switch or on the Wii U, um, whichever way you can. Because like I said when I started the video, the game is just as good on the Wii U. From experience, I can say that, and yeah, it's such a good game. Um, so that's my 5 cents. Have you finished the game? What did you think of it? Please let me know. And like I said, I'm gonna make another video talking about more spoilers and talk about the game a bit more. So if you finished the game and you're more curious about like some of my more personal adventures and experiences with the game, or my thoughts of a lot of the like territories, that'll be in that video. But for now, thanks so much for watching, and I hope you enjoyed. So until next time, get gaming.